My name is Ove Tinggaard. I like to say over, not under, so people can remember Ove with Danish name. My wife and I were invited to come to Kenya by Doc Sparks and Jim White to start up a high school work. Navigators were already working hard at the college, university, but there were some obstacles. The CIA suspected the navigators of helping US and asked why can't they work out in the countryside like all the other missionaries? Why do they want to work with students, which is such a sensitive area? And then another difficulty was that the Christian Union thought they had a monopoly on all Protestant Christians, that they belonged to them and no other group should interfere. So our job was to get students from the top high schools, Nairobi School, Lenana, Alliance, Kenya High, Nairobi Girls, now Moi Girls, Jamhuri later came in, and we should win students there, and they should hit campus with their feet already running in as disciples. And it worked so well. Pretty soon, when they came into college, they became leaders in the Christian Union, and relationship between navigators and the Christian Union became much better. So that was a great opening there. So our job was to get students into university with their feet running, like I said, being disciples and eager for the Lord. And we had claimed very much this verse that you shall raise up the foundations of many generations, and your sons shall be known by the Lord. So we claimed those. And of course we very much talked about 2 Timothy 2:2, that Paul says to Timothy, what you have heard from me, pass that on to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. So we were looking for those faithful men who would be able to teach others also. Our job was very clear, to raise up Kenyan leadership and go back to Denmark. Once that was done, we were 4 or 5 missionary families at that time. We were very afraid of coming to Kenya. I had a worry book with 13 points. Later it became my joke book, because it was so funny, and I was so wrong in worrying about these things. For instance, I worried about, will we ever be allowed into these high schools? I had heard some things of conditions in Russia where Christians were not allowed to talk to others. So I pictured myself sneaking in the dark and whispering through the fence to some students that were willing to meet us. But instead we were welcomed. Jim White had an excellent relationship with other missionaries and school teachers. So we, instead of sneaking in illegally in the dark, we were welcomed at the school in Nairobi, the school chapel, morning singing, 800 boys singing away as loud as they could. At the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow. And it felt like the roof lifted. And then we were introduced and welcomed. And they told the students, the headmaster told the students, this couple, Ove and Marie, they will be here in the afternoons and do some Bible studies, and they will be good people for you to talk to. So go and meet them if you have any questions. So that was quite a welcome. We also tried to serve Nairobi School and Marie had been on a volleyball team in Denmark. actually when that team that won the Danish championship. But in those days, volleyball was not quite as professional and advanced as now. But anyway, she taught the boys up there volleyball, and we played volleyball with them. We even went to Lenana one time, but we hadn't given them enough warning, so they said they didn't get their best player out, so we beat them, and there was a roar when it was announced in chapel. But this raising up the foundation of many generations was very much in our mind. Find leaders. So one young man we invited in, who was in Form 6, was Mutua Mahayene. He came and worked with us for, like an assistant. He worked with us, lived in our home. We had a small flat at Jamhuri Estate, so the servants' quarter was already taken up by another student. So there was no room for Mutua. He slept on a mattress, and when Anne-Marie came down in the morning, she would shout, "Are you dressed? Are you awake? I'm coming down." So Mutua would roll up his mattress and fold it in under the stairs, and we got going. He would go with me out to schools to lead Bible studies and just help in the ministry. We got a house in Woodley, and we had a double garage there, and so we had triple-decker beds, 3 layers high there. So because we started having people living with us, we weren't so much in formal teaching and big books and big words. So we basically invited these people with potential leadership into our home to become like our sons. We would sit around the table and crack jokes and share Bible verses and pray together, do Bible study. And so we had many people living in these triple-decker beds in those 2 rooms. In Nakuru, we really wanted many, so we made triple-deckers and also 3 aside in a big room, so that room could take 18 people, and we had conferences there. Big lawn in front, but we had to have the fan on when all the beds were taken. Yes. Yes, this is, I was concerned that it seemed that the students, the high school students we worked with, had the dream of ending up in an office with a jacket and tie and tell other people what to do. And we felt that a real development would come by, you know, if the educated people also are willing to get their hands dirty with soil and water and cement and bricks and all that, oil, that it was a good thing to also do some manual work. And sometimes somehow you are united very much when you do manual work together, just like you are when you are on a sports team together. So we were 32 men, young men, who worked for 11 days. We were given a small valley where there were hills behind supplying this valley with rain. And so we worked with wheelbarrows and did a barrier across and a spillway to the side and front. So it lasted, unfortunately, only a couple of years because the rains were way too much and it swept it away. One time we rebuilt it again and higher, but still it got swept away. But we now hear that the people we met there, people from the neighboring village, Makueni, they came and saw the dam we were doing. And we now hear that Makueni is a place that the students travel down to in buses to see their water conservation ideas. So sometimes we dream that this Ukiah Dam was an inspiration for them to start conserving water. So that's a nice thought, at least, not confirmed. In '85, we handed the Kenya leadership, country leader, over to Mutua, and then we saw him just progress in leadership, becoming Africa leader, and finally be invited to Colorado Springs to be on the leadership team. And then they invited him to be the world leader of the navigator work. And we were very happy and thankful, maybe a little proud also. We arrived in '73. We were newly married in '72, and they wanted us to come even that summer, July or August, but we felt that would be too hard for Anne-Marie's parents for us to leave so quickly, so soon. So we agreed on January '73, and then we stayed till '87, 2 years after Mutua had taken over. Well, one, Peter Acker, was who later became a medical doctor. We knew one of the teachers, and he has mentioned Peter Acker to be head of a house, and the other teacher laughed because he was a bit naughty and not following the rules. But later he became school captain because he changed. He came into a room where we were listening to a Billy Graham tape, and he said later, after that session, I went out in the corner of the school and I received the Lord Jesus into my heart. So he did very well in his studies in college, became a medical doctor. There was Dennis Tinggaard. He was already a leader in the school, excelling both in sports and academics, and as head of school, I believe. Nick Van Joyke was a wise man. David Uduno, Peter Buyo and Moses Buyo were doing well. And that was very wonderful how they stood out and were the kind of people that we were trusting the Lord to give us, who would become leaders, who could take over after us, which of course they did, and did it so much better than we did. I've shared about Mutua, but of course Bruce van Wyk, I think, had the major impact in really building into Mutua's life. Mutua says that I discipled him. I more humbly say I discovered him, because he was already a quality man from a good family. His father later became a bishop, and so Mutua came from a very good family. The brothers are walking with the Lord, and the one sister doing very well. Yes, so he was a man chosen by God, I believe. Yes, we wanted to those up and coming leaders to really feel the leadership and not look over their shoulder what would overthink or something like that. And also we had this dream that teachers should now be doing this discipling. So we knew some teachers in Western Kenya that we would go and see and see if they disciple students. So we moved to Nakuru. For the last 5 years of our term of 14 years, Thomas Undigi was a strong key man then at the Rift Valley Technical College, I believe. He had quite a testimony there. For instance, many of the assistants, myself included, would sometimes go early morning before their breakfast and meet them for personal quiet time. And they were willing to get up extra early and meet us there. And then they would really start living the life and witness in the school. Another thing, at first we had the plan, since we are thinking of college, let us not work with anybody below Form 3. There were 6, there was A-level and 6 forms in those days. So but then we saw the newcomers walk around, and we knew they would be bullied somewhat in the school. And also we knew that which friends they start walking with could decide the direction of their life for the rest of their lives, what friends they would make. So we started seeking out these young ones and giving them big brothers who would counsel them and protect them from bullying and so on, and help them meet other friends in the Christian Union and so on, maybe in a Bible study. And one of those was this pastor, Oscar Murillo, who now has many churches around with many people. And others like that came to live for the Lord and are standing out now as righteous men in what they are doing. Yes. Well, it's important that we worked with both men and women, and then we had what we call the highlight conferences, brought them together in these conferences and met one another, and they stuck together in fellowship, and later many of them got married and have beautiful homes now, where they, raise their children on these same godly principles. I would say that's important, and life skills, talking about how to live life, how to make friends. We talked a lot about, maybe I exaggerated a little bit. I said I don't think when a boys' school goes to visit a girls' school that you only have one girl and you talk with her the whole time and concentrate on her. I think it's healthy to socialize and not specialize. So some still hate me for that, but some managed to marry that girl anyway that their heart loved. But to learn to mix freely with many kinds of people, boys and girls together, and then follow the friendship. Keep seeing them being. We thought at first, when we handed over the students onto the university, that they were sort of now out of our hands. but we did not quite count on the Kenyan friendship, that because they kept coming to our house, and we loved it, even though they were now in university. So hanging on to relationships, and once you are friends and have shared deeply, this is for many years a wonderful thing. That's why we love coming down now and meeting some of these friends again. That because you Kenyans, I think you know something about relationships and friendships that we have lost in the West, lost a bit. Well, God was more than faithful, we thought, in that the hearts were much more open than we had expected. And people, so they would receive the Lord, and they would be willing to come for Bible study in much greater numbers than what we had expected. We also experienced the Lord's faithfulness in, we didn't have a church at home or there was just a small navigator work in Denmark, but somehow they sent us enough money so that we never lacked anything. We think that was the Lord's work. It certainly wasn't our work. I was a bit nervous about our funds, so I sent out a letter at one leave that prices had increased and so on. I only got one answer back that I have lost my job. I have to stop supporting you completely. So that was not so encouraging. But after out here, we had the giving increased, and we had always had enough to live on. And also great blessing was that our biggest expense, school fees. A Christian came into Parliament and with his party, and they managed to pass a new law that missionary children should have their schools paid, as well as diplomats and other people working for Denmark outside. So this was the biggest expense at all, that suddenly the Danish government started paying all our school fees, which was a real blessing to us. Operation Joshua, we gathered university students for some training, and then we would travel out as teams to visit different schools. I took a group to India. We were 7 altogether, Mutua and Stephanie and Flo and Musharia. Yeah, Musharia said, wow, he had never seen poor Indians, but now they were really poor. He felt Kenyans are rich compared to the poverty we met there in India. But some student had studied there, Margaret Oduno, and invited us to come and evangelize with her and build these contacts that she had. So it certainly was a time when Mutua and Stephanie could find time and whisper a little together, I noticed. So that was really a blessing. Musharia, yeah, he calls me Dad, and he came quite a lot to our home. And he came at a time when we had 7 Danes visit. And he had then finished high school and had enough good grades to get into university. But his father had died, and And he had 3 siblings, so his mom asked him to please just take a job and until these 3 siblings were through their schooling, at least basic 9th grade. And these Danes felt that was so terrible that he was smart enough to get into university, one of the few, and so they each promised 1,600 shillings a month for the 3 years. Each would give him that amount so he could go to college and his siblings would be taken care of, school fees. Some of them also bought a complete house for his mom, built a small house out there, which made a great impression on Usharya. So he said, I want to do the same. So his wife led Mama Samaki to the Lord and into a Bible study. This lady that sold fish, and later Usharya and his wife and their children, 3 children and other young people with them, went out to this area, and actually this lady got such a great testimony out there that 3 churches in 3 small villages got started out there. That's a wonderful story. Joe was thankful that he received this help with the house, and so he helped Mama Samaki build got some land and build some house out there for her. Yes, south of Kisumu on the Migori. Yes, it's actually now the EPTF are taking on that area to help poor people. Like they take 200 poor families and help with better farming and maybe uniting them in some kind of a society so they will sell their crops as a cooperative, taking them to the market together. And maybe up at Eldoret, where we also taught beekeeping, maybe we can add that to the training. In Eldoret, they have now put over 100 beehives out to poor farmers, and that honey, in a way, is the poor man's gold. It can be sold, and you don't have to buy food for the bees. It's very encouraging to see, especially the women are taken on to this beekeeping. And some navigator disciples are helping them with seeing that the bees are doing well, and also when it comes to harvest time for the honey, that they will empty the frames for them. They have one of these centrifuges that gets the honey out of the frames. So we hope good things like that also will happen in Migori. Some of these places where these projects have been, the ladies have gotten together in this happy go-round savings effort. So they have a box there with 2 or 3 padlocks, and they each save up 150 or 100 shillings or whatever. And then they can take loans if they have projects. So these women are empowered now. They are in charge of the money, and some of these savings banks, table banks, have even done some social work. Up in Moyben, they gave some clothes to a very poor family. Another one, they helped finish a house that was in bad repair. So it's nice to see that they also take on social responsibility in Jesus' name. I'm very pleased that they will share their added income that way. I wanted to do things together with the students. I believe friendship is formed by activities you do together, like sports or working together. So we took a trip out into the wilderness. We did many of those. We knew some missionaries that worked out with the Maasai, and they introduced us to the chief there in that village just below the Gong Mountains. There was only one boma and nothing else, just the thorn trees and giraffes there. So we planned the trip like we would plan a trip back in Scandinavia. We had extra clothes in case it should rain, and we checked the maps and saw that there were rivers, but only we found out later those rivers were seasonal. So the second day we only had one small cup of water for each, and we three of us went up to Kikuyu village from the bottom of the escarpment there between Gong and Mount Suswa. We walked up to Kikuyu village and arrived in the night after dark. And the people out there made a big fire, and they were so thirsty. One tried to drink melted Blue Band margarine, and threw it right up again. And that was the worst planned hike ever. But we all can talk about it. We will never forget that, because it was memorable. Both the long ride we took, sleeping out in the open, we gathered firewood, and then we kept a fire going all through the night. We would take 2 people, 2 hours, and we would sit and talk, and we could hear a leopard barking nearby and the hyenas around, and we would keep this fire going. We even brought a volleyball net to keep the lions out of our camp, and but we got some really good talks sitting there in the dark. Then the 3 of us, Nick and myself, and what's his name, Karanja, yes, we would get the early milk truck from the Kikuyu village into Kikuyu town and get transport to, and we telephoned from there to get Craig Goldfein to come out with a van and pick up if there were anybody left alive among our contacts there. But they said actually when it became dark, the thirst was not so bad, so they managed and were all saved and in good mood. But that was not my brightest planning. that trip. Yes. Another story, 7 Americans visited us, and Peter Buyu was now a science teacher at Kisumu Technical School. So 13 of us went there, and we stayed overnight, and we met students and witnessed and talked. But there was only one contact we had after this big effort that wanted to have more contact with us. But this one was Noel Owor, the brother of Tom Owor. So he became the key to many people. So one man can be a key to many. Yes. So that was a big effort for one person, but one person can be a significant key to many. Yeah. I enjoy telling jokes. So there was these three blonde ladies in Denmark. I don't know why Danes think that when you're blonde and beautiful, you must also be stupid. Anyway, this bus driver saw two ladies by the side of the road, and one was digging a hole, and the other one then filled in the hole there by the roadside. And then, so when the bus driver came back and saw they were still doing the same, he said, "This is strange. You dig a hole and fill it back up. I thought that was only in the military you learned to do that." He said, "Well, normally we are three people, but the one who puts the tree in the hole is sick today,